Questions. So I've got a question from Member Cohen.
Well, I do share your sentiments in regard to how I spent my weekend. I had 12 pages of questions that I was going to probably get the ball with over this particular item, and I'm sure I would have spent my weekend in a different fashion. But
suddenly I'm grateful for other reasons, but there we go. Thank you, Mike. Member Cohen, is there any question that you do have?
Just happy to move it when you're
very good. A question from Member Rowe, and then it's seconded by Member Gillen, so we'll put that after that question.
I was just curious as to why you felt that somebody coming in as perhaps a new board member would be better suited to answer questions about the various topics that have been going on in relation for a while that we have to be quite familiar with.
Alison, my answer to that is probably encompassed in the fact that some members on this board were well aware of the prospects of a yachting New Zealand hard stand, etc., to come forward or take part of the Northern Reserve. And I think it's history, but North to North Shore Times and Marnie Hallahan made point that the concept of yachting New Zealand's headquarters being placed in the Northern Reserve was something that was led by some of the bureaucrats within the Auckland Council, and I personally believe that has continued over the past 3 years. And my concern effectively is the respect that this past 3 years that has gone by has seen division and dissension. It's seen possibly the community come together in a greater way than it ever has. But I have to say as one person that I have lost confidence in the ability of this board to make a proper decision.
Okay, so it's moved and Member Cohen seconded by the Deputy Chair. All those in favour? Contrary? Sorry, question?
Do you believe that Yachting New Zealand was interested in one of Winston Churchill's more famous quotes? Don't take no for an answer?
That would seem very relative at the moment, but perhaps that page has been turned.
I just feel I've just actually been driven, with 50 emails coming in on both my private email and I have actually know how you've been, because I've been quite stressed by the amount of time people have put into emails. I got one at 3:30 this morning, and I just think that it's very interesting how the community, and particularly the neighbours of the camping ground, have all joined in. One of your neighbours met me, and I said, I can't believe that neighbours are wanting to live near a camping ground. So it says something for the management of the camping ground.
Right, so as I say, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
And that means the next presenter is Gary Venus. Sure. So the speaker box is still on, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm here as a long-term Takapuna resident who has been aware of the issues with motor camp, and it's moved me to come tonight. Say a few words, but I won't say what I was going to say because we've got the right outcome. But there are just three corollary matters that I wouldn't mind clarification on. The first one is in the December meeting, 600 square metres was carved off the motor camp. Now, and that's in a resolution of the board. I'm just assuming you're going to go back and address that matter later. The second point is there was a report called for by Panuku on looking at the reduced area of the motor camp, and I guess that report is no longer needed. And thirdly, what's happening with the Waka Ama people, because their application, it said it was coming, it seemed to be intertwined with Yachting New Zealand. So I guess we'd like some clarification on what's happening with the Waka Ama people.
I think that's fair enough. So just in terms of members, if you don't mind me just taking the opportunity to clarify a few of those points, and if anyone disagrees, they can correct me at the end. But in terms of I guess I'll deal with the first and the second together. So the 10% reduction of the campground footprint, as a standing resolution. So if the board is of a mind to readdress that, that's something the board can do. Given that there's no alternative proposals for it, I think there was an intention at the time, and I'm not sure if that's still the intention of the board, to look to have that included in, as an expanded open space area next to the campground. But obviously, it's up for the board to consider whether that's something they might want to revisit. So that kind of leads into the second point around the Panuku report. The Panuku report is still necessary because they manage all of our commercial leasing processes. So because we are still contemplating a 10-year lease with a question of how many rights of renewal on the reduced footprint and now, potentially the entire footprint, that will need to go through their processes for an expression of interest process and for a market tender process. So the board is is going through the motions to make sure that can move forward. It's unfortunately taken longer than we thought, but that was the point I alluded to earlier with Mr. Shea, and I think even Mr. Batty might be involved in it as well, where there's a community stakeholder group that we're going to use, representing a number of groups to help us form the right kind of brief for that so that we can go out for expressions of interest. So I do think that process will still be necessary. And I may have, I've temporarily forgotten the third one. Oh, Wakarama. That is a very important question because the reserve management plan specifically contemplates a lease for or a license to occupy either for Wakarama, and it hasn't really been progressed as yet, but it was intended that they could be given some security of tenure. So I gather that moving forward from this, the board will be of an appetite to suggest to Wakarama that they go through the processes to formalise that with Maureen's department. Whenever the time comes for that. So members, I hope that's a fair representation, but if there are any questions or corrections, Member Cohen.
I'll be interested. I'm not quite sure whether Lewis and Bill are still going to be talking.
No, so Lewis Bear from Wakama North Shore and Bill Kapia, neither of them are speaking now. So they're the two who dropped out before.
I mean, looking at it, it does highlight that when they do come back to us, and we can perhaps bring it up at the item, they need to come through with a joint proposal rather than having a fragmented approach to it.
I think we all need to get a bit more understanding around what the dynamics of that relationship and other aspects are. I mean, we've still got the written submission from Mr. Kapia with us, and I do think it just highlights that there's a lot of cultural overtones that need to be factored in as well. So anyway, any other questions? Sorry, I couldn't tell Council Wood if that was a hand up for a question. Member O'Connor.
Obviously, you've read the report. Did you realise that they were going to take 60 square metres of the little reserve to move the road? The tiny little bit of flat reserve. I'm not quite sure how big. 60 square metres. Big as a flat in the city, in Nelson Street. Is that 60 square metres?
Probably bigger than two flats.
So it's not that big.
Not a very big flat, but it's big enough.
Yeah. I'm happy to move. Okay, it's moved by Member Gillen, seconded by Member Hale. Oh, sorry, Member Hale got him just before. Everyone's excited to move. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you very much. So that's receiving and thank you. Right, then, sorry, now I've lost my papers in front of me. Mike Rena is the next presenter. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit nervous. I've never spoken in this forum before. There's three things. Most of what I've written is now irrelevant, but there's three things I would like to say. First thing is, my wife and I came to the shore in 1970, and there was very little iconic about the shore in 1970. The roads were poorly paved. The drains were open. It was the forgotten part of Auckland, is the reality. But there were two things that were iconic about the shore. One was the broken down Devonport Wharf, and the other was the grand old lady, the Takapuna beach camping ground. In those days, we were an open people. We were welcoming people, and the camping ground epitomised what we were as a community, and many of you will remember that. So we welcomed people to enjoy our beaches, our facilities, even though we didn't have as much as the other side of the city. we still welcomed people in, and it was part of who we were. And my suggestion to this board is restore the grandeur of that grand old lady. Her skirt got cut off some years ago, a piece got carved off. It needs to be restored. The second thing that I have to say is that the shore has never been short of good yachtsmen. And so this application was actually fallacious. It didn't stop Peter Blake. It didn't stop Dean Barter. It didn't stop Chris Dixon. Need I go on to the number of yachtsmen who have come out of this area here? It should never have got this far. The poll spoke very, very clearly, and this board did not listen to the poll, and democracy stood to fall. It was as simple as that. And my suggestion is that for those people who stay on this board, you need to see yourselves as trustees. You don't own the land and you don't own anything. You act as trustees. You have been appointed, and there's a trust relationship between the residents and the ratepayers and this board, and that was missing. And my suggestion is that you listen to the 1972 track by the Doobie Brothers. Listen to the music. No, listen to the people.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Renner. I do have a question from the Deputy Chair, Member Gillen.
Thank you for those wise comments. I'm just wondering how far you've read on the agenda and whether you're aware that there are actually two of our reserves up for endorsement or otherwise for sale by this council tonight. And
can I just clarify through the Chair on that point, Member Gillen, neither of the pieces of land that are up for sale have reserve classification. So just to clarify, they are pieces of land that are owned by the council, but they're not reserved pieces of land.
Okay, so there are two pieces of land that are currently parkland and could be used for reserves, one of which is at the park at Hauraki Corner and the other at Forest Hill Road. And the Panuku is recommending to council that they be disposed of. So I think your comments here today are very, very important. So thank you for bringing them to the board.
Very good. Well, with that being said, do I have a mover to say thank you, Member Cohen, seconded by Member Hale, that we thank and receive Mike Brenner's presentation. All those in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you very much. So, members, as I said, both Bill Kapia and Lewis Bear have withdrawn from presenting tonight. So we've gone to our alternate presenters. So we've got James Young first, and then, sorry, Member Cohen. Oh, absolutely. If they would like it tabled, as I said to Mr. Batty, we can have that received.
No, I mean,
Oh, right. We'll have to make contact with both of them to double check. I appreciate that, but recognising that obviously there's been a change of situation, we'll just need to double check with them if they still want both of them recorded. Sorry, I didn't stop the time for the last one. Yep, I think that's fine. We can make a note for when we confirm the minutes at the next meeting on that point. Sorry, Mr. Young, I'm not sure whether you would prefer to be listed in the minutes as Jim or James, but if you let us know, we can make sure we have that noted.
Thank you, sir.
We can do that at the end, after Mr. Young's and then Ms. Dean's presentations. Sorry, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Everything I was going to say has already been said, and so I'll be quite brief. I would like to congratulate Yachting New Zealand for finally coming to their senses, and also to congratulate them on their wonderful big hard stand that they have, which is about 10 times the size of the one that they're aiming at, which is still going to be there and will be there for many, many years to come. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions? I think that's pretty clear and succinct. So moved, Member Hale, seconded Member Rowe, that we receive the presentation. Now, would you like your written presentation recorded, Jim?
Yes, certainly.
And you prefer to be in the minutes as Jim Young or James Young?
Please yourself.
Okay. maybe both. Excellent. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. So that just leaves Trish. I did see her before. Oh, there you are. Trish. Can I just double check as well, Trish, is this a personal submission or are you making this on behalf of Devonport Heritage?
No, it's personal.
Personal.
Heritage hasn't submitted at all. I just want to clarify one point from the representatives of the board.